Big 10, SEC, ACC, and Big 12 commitments. Let's break it down here on the Recruiting Blitz on the Portal Podcast.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal scoop. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get everything going on in college football right here. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. There's a lot of different happenings around college football. And before I get to the commitments, just a few different items. Several teams are still trying to get guys lined up for official visits. And Notre Dame, among others, has guys on campus, a couple of really important receivers for unofficial visits, Caden Finley among them. So you could see some random commitments. You could see some changing of official visits around college football. It is the season. Next, let's just kind of go over a couple key notes here. We're talking about a lot of really good football players today, but there is no timing that is specific, if you will, to when kids are going to commit. I just got a couple of notes. Like Wisconsin gets a really good group of kids to commit, but they also lost Carmelo Reed to Ole Miss. Really good defensive lineman from Chicago. Going to Ole Miss, that hurts Wisconsin. Georgia, Gavin Hanari, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but Hanari, wide receiver from Mater Dei class of 27, commits to Georgia early. Now, the Dogs have needed receiver help, and all of a sudden they're getting them in droves. Well done by the UGA staff. Calvin Russell, speaking of wide receivers, Miami Northwestern, one of the best prospects in the class of 2026. He has lined up an official visit to Oregon. Auburn, just a little trending note here. Gotten a few people that I know locally where I live are going to be concerned about Auburn. They've had a lot of good players on campus for visits, but no commitments yet. Just kind of keep an eye on Auburn. And then we got some interesting flips in recruiting commitments that aren't really shocking. But then again, I think they're important to note before I get in just to the list and go through them. Tommy Tofi, he's from the San Francisco area, big-time offensive tackle. He's staying home and going to Cal. This is a kid that could have went to the SEC. He could have went to the Big Ten, etc. Decides to stay home, play for Cal, of course, during the Atlantic Coast Conference, which makes no sense. But that's beside the point. He's going to be a young man that has the opportunity to play college football near home, and that's a really important thing. Like Cal doesn't normally get these guys. Good for the Golden Bears. Next, Iowa State. They've done pretty well, especially recruiting the state of Nebraska so far, but they lose a pretty good player out of the state of Ohio. Braden Thomas flips to Michigan State. He's from St. Edward, one of the better players in the greater Cleveland area. That's a good DB. I think it'll be interesting to see if they can flip him back. Like in this world, anything's possible. I wouldn't be shocked, but we'll see. Then I just want to bring up something. I saw an article by Chad Simmons, one of the best scouts in our business. Great guy. Works for On3 and Rivals. He brought up that the Valdosta defensive end, kind of an under-the-radar guy. Corey Howard had a great visit, and he's going to take, again, as I mentioned a minute ago, some kids taking unofficials. He's going back to Gainesville this week. Is there any reason that I should believe that he's not going to commit? You take your OV, then you publicly announce via Chad Simmons that you're going to take an unofficial to Gainesville again right after? I'd have to think that the Florida Gators are most definitely on commit watch. Now let's just break down the commitments. There's quite a few to discuss over the last day. And I went down a long way on this list to try to find the beginning of it. And again, Braden Thomas, safety out of Lakewood. That's the first one I want to mention. Keegan Collins, offensive tackle out of West Plains High School, Canyon, Texas, 6'6", 280 pounds. He's going to play for Kansas State. We also have Chance Payne, cornerback out of Jefferson, Georgia. He's going all the way up to Minnesota. The Gophers have been on a recruiting heater. They're doing a tremendous job, really good job for them, not just to get kids locally too. They're getting kids from all across the country. That's really impressive. Landon Kalsbeck, Washington State picks up that commitment, 6'1.5", 210 pounds. He is out of Colorado. Eli Raquel, interior offensive lineman, going to go to North Carolina. He's from Norcross, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. plays at the Wesleyan School. Next up, we have got Jamarcus Jones. He's an athlete out of Harvest Prep. He's going to Buffalo, and he's from the Columbus, Ohio area. Well, Gary Mitchell, Meridian High School, Meridian, Idaho. There's a random town that I don't normally get to talk about on this show. He's headed to Utah. He's a linebacker at 6'2", 200 pounds. Malachi Irvin going to Buffalo, another kid, 6'4", 220 pounds. He's out of Pickerington North, another kid from the greater Columbus, Ohio area. Kansas State, Justin Morales, another kid out of Texas. Franklin High School, El Paso, 6'4", 265 pounds. Could be guard, could be a tackle. He is headed to Kansas State. Bryce Gilmore, offensive tackle, 6'5", 297, out of Prosper, Texas. They're on the north side of Dallas. He's going to be an Arkansas Razorback. He's one of the better offensive linemen in the country. Big pickup for Arkansas. That might be the most important pickup they have so far in this class. If they can start getting consistent over a year to the next offensive line recruiting like this, it'll change their program. Really big pickup for the Hogs. Ronaldo Callaway, he's an edge, 6'5", 210 pounds, out of Macon, Georgia, Southwest High School. He's thin. He's about 205 pounds, but Rutgers, again, this is just a wild year. You don't think of a team like Rutgers getting kids out of South Georgia, Central Georgia, but they do. Keaton Rink, St. Charles North, he's 6'3", 210 pounds. He's going to Northwestern. He's an athlete. He could play multiple positions. I imagine he'll probably end up playing outside linebacker or possibly tight end. Jeremy Winston, wide receiver, 6'2", 165, out of Rome, Georgia, is going to Georgia Tech, and his teammate, Darnell Collins, another receiver at Rome High School, is also going to Georgia Tech. Winston, 6'2", 165, Collins, 6'4", 190 pounds. South Alabama, Taylor Jacobs Jr., out of Lincoln High School, quarterback in Tallahassee, Florida. That's a famous program. Taylor Jacobs Jr., 6'1", 185. He's going to South Alabama. Kenton Mondo, offensive tackle, 6'7", 315, out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin, North High School, going to Indiana. This is at least the second kid the Hoosiers have stolen out of Wisconsin. By 24/7, Kenton is rated a top 5 prospect in the state of Wisconsin. That is not a good sign for the Badgers. They cannot afford to lose offensive linemen like that. Carter Emanuel, this is a kid I know well. He's from Edgewater High School in Orlando. He's going up to Connecticut. Great kid, got a big arm. Quarterback, 6'1", 215 pounds. Really strong kid. I think that's a steal for UConn. I think he's got power 4 ability. Jack Severs, tight end, 6'4", 225, out of Archbishop Murphy in Everett, Washington. He's going to play for Wisconsin, so he's going a long way away from home. Omar Kaba, out of Wilma Field High School in Gilbert, Arizona, offensive tackle, 6'4", 190. He is going to play for the Vandals at Idaho. And another guy's going there as well, BLITZ McCarty, out of Grandview, Aurora, Colorado, quarterback, 6'2", 190 pounds. Again, he's going to play for the Vandals. Jaden Ford, Miami Central in Miami, Florida. He's going to play for FIU, so he's going right down the road. We also have Michael Dominack going to Charlotte. He's at a Kell High School in Marietta. That's an edge, 6'2", 225. Carmelo Reed, who I mentioned a few minutes ago, 6'7", 250. He's out of Rich Township in Olympia Fields, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. He has flipped from Wisconsin to Ole Miss. And Tommy Tofi, as I also mentioned, going to Cal, the offensive tackle. He is massive, 6'6", 330 pounds. Archbishop Riordan in San Francisco, California. He is going to be a very big addition. I wouldn't be surprised if he played early for Cal because they don't normally get kids like him. So, again, big pickup for the Cal Bears. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about LSU, what they have coming in this year, because if it doesn't get done this year, is Brian Kelly back in 2026? There's a lot of pressure on Kelly and his staff to get it done. They have some great transfer portal guys. What's next for LSU? That is coming up here on the Portal Podcast. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building actual wealth. This is an opportunity to make it a little bit more convenient for yourself as well. Instead of tracking your finances in different apps, under different brands, you can put it in one place with Monarch Money. You can also do that with your partner. So again, instead of having each of you having it in different places, you could both do it with Monarch Money to save you time and make it more convenient. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for 50% off your first year. All right, let's talk a little LSU. I just have a few questions after a few guys that I want to mention that I think are going to be key. LSU plays a difficult schedule every year, and they've got to get things rolling early because they play at Death Valley. Not their own, ironically, Clemson. They're going to Clemson first game. They're going to have tough games across the board. They got to play Bama on the road. They've got tough games all over the place. Can they get to the playoff? Can they make noise? And if they don't, is Brian Kelly back in 2026? He's under a little bit of a hot seat. Not that he's a terrible coach or anything, but the expectations there are crazy. I know the people like on the Go 24/7 board, they think it's either SEC title or bust. Like that's pretty high expectations. I don't think their chances of winning the SEC are great. So this is one of those crazy fan bases, and the heat is going to be on. So here are the comments that I have. We'll get to Garrett Nussmeier momentarily, but the two most important guys they have coming in from the portal are A.J. Halsey, the safety who is tremendous. He transferred in from Houston. He's been a 3-year starter, played his first year over at New Mexico. Then he's played the last couple of years at Houston. Great player. And then Tamarcus Cooley's probably going to play that nickel spot, allegedly. Long kid, very athletic. He was at NC State. The back end of their defense still makes too many critical errors, whether it's a run gap bid, whether it's letting somebody loose, etc. They had too many problems last year. Now it's Matt House's second year as a defensive coordinator. They've got plenty of good coaches there, but can they blend it together? Well, having two guys that have NFL capabilities transfer in certainly helps. Plus, they got DJ Pickett, one of the most elite DBs that I've ever scouted, coming into the program. The kid out of the Tampa area. He's from Zephyr Hills High School, just outside of Tampa. Not many guys are 6'3.5", 6'4" that can play like he does. I expect him to contribute as well. Not sure exactly where, but he's going to find a role. But that secondary is the key. Secondarily, they got not one, but two expensive pass rushers in the portal. One of them from a rival, Jack Pyburn. He came over from the Florida Gators, a team that LSU traditionally plays every year. And they also got Patrick Payton from the Florida State Seminoles. Will at least, keyword, at least one of the two be consistent this year? I would guess Pyburn, because he's just kind of a guy that plays with his hair on fire. But being consistent doesn't mean you play with effort. It means you get results. Their pass rush needs to help that secondary. And if it does, big question, is it plausible that LSU does climb into that 10-11 win category? I say yes, because I think they're going to score a lot. I'll talk about that in a second. But the pass rush, it should be pretty good. They got some other guys coming in too, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But if you get those two guys going, especially early against Cade Klubnik, and they're not like just overrunning their responsibilities to stop the run, they're not getting out of the rush lanes and all that. If they can do that and they're consistent against the run and they're applying pressure consistently, I think we're talking about a scenario where LSU could be a major playoff contender. But especially Patrick Payton, he was so up and down at Florida State last year. I need to see it. Again, I think Pyburn's the more likely of the two candidates, but will he be the guy that makes headway in a consecutive way of like not just getting a sack and another sack in a game, like he has that great game every week? The consecutive ability to make it happen every week in the SEC is hard. He did pretty good job with it last year when not as many people knew about it when he was at Florida, but now Pyburn and hopefully for LSU, Peyton as well, they need to get it done. Also, last year, this should never happen at LSU. They were number 51 in the nation in rush D, 140.08 yards per game allowed. Running quarterbacks were like just dominant against them. A&M, they threw and completed a grand total of 8 passes and beat LSU by double digits. I say again, completed 8 passes. One of the reasons is Marcel Reed had 9 carries for over 60 yards. They had multiple running backs that gashed the Tigers as well. That's another reason that I brought up not only Pyburn as a getting it after the quarterback guy, but like, can you be consistent and stay in your rush lanes? That's something I'm concerned about Patrick Payton too. He was not that way at Florida State. I cover FSU. They weren't even remotely going to pay what he wanted, but LSU did. So we'll see if that works out. All right. As an overall comment, just think about this. Does LSU have a defense that is really good this next year? Week to week to week. They got to go to Ole Miss. They got to play at Alabama. I mean, they've got some really tough games. How is that going to work out for them? I'm still a little leery. I need to see it. And I need to see the consistency in the back end of the defense. No busts the last couple of years, especially 2 years ago. LSU secondary was a sieve. How is that going to transpire? That's my biggest question. And with that, if they are more consistent, they should increase the number of turnovers they get through the air. Picks, getting fumbles on quarterbacks, being in the pocket, holding it too long because the secondary is doing their job. Those things should happen. But when we flip to the opposite side of the ball, this is probably the biggest question for them on that side. It's not Garrett Nussmeier. He's very talented. You lose multiple guys in the NFL that were really good, and a couple other guys probably going to stick around in the NFL too. How does that work out? I mean, the number 4 pick in the draft was the left tackle for the LSU Tigers. So that's going to be difficult. And they still couldn't run the ball consistently last year. They sucked at it. They just didn't have any chemistry. Can they run the ball better? Do they open rush lanes for Caden Durham, who's a great talent? But we need to see him be more productive because he's got somewhere to run before he tries to make a guy miss. There was far too much of that last year. And finally, with the run game, Garrett Nussmeier is not a great runner, but can he be a little more timely, a little more clutch with it? Just to add in, sometimes just getting a 3-yard scramble is the difference between winning and losing an SEC football game. Just something to think about. Is there going to be a bell cow running back? I don't think so. That's something I'm curious about. Like, Durham's not the biggest guy. I think they have enough players that it'll probably work out for LSU in that regard, but I'm not convinced that that's going to be the case. Maybe Caleb Jackson. I think Harlan Berry will play some. He's the stud freshman, but I think Caleb Jackson will get just as many carries as Durham in certain games, and they'll probably play the hot hand. Now, everybody's probably wondering why I haven't mentioned Nussmeier or the receivers, and I'm just going to make this real simple. They're going to throw it around. They've got all these guys coming in, transfers that are good, and they've got talented players coming back. I don't think LSU is going to struggle in that regard. But again, it's just consistency, and it's like the familiarity with it too. Nick Anderson a couple of years ago for Oklahoma was a dude, but he's been banged up. He's the big-bodied receiver that can play boundary. Maybe he's that guy. You got Barryon Brown coming in, very talented guy from Kentucky. He's had some big seasons. But is he going to be ready for the spotlight at LSU? I think he will. I think he's going to put up big numbers, but we'll see. And if he doesn't, maybe this is the year that Chris Hilton Jr., from a consistency standpoint, makes it happen at LSU. We'll see how that goes because they certainly have talent. The one guy that I'm very confident in is the slot receiver, Aaron Anderson. He is a dude, and I think he will be one of the more explosive players and possibly even a guy that leads the SEC in total number of receptions. I think that him and Honeycomb, the receiver for Ole Miss, their slot, I would pick him to be number one, but if Aaron Anderson led the league in receptions, it would not surprise me. Finally, Garrett Nussmeier, I just want to bring up something. When they played badly last year, a lot of it was due to, again, the running game just wasn't there, and they gave up too much on the other side. And then Nussmeier would sometimes panic. Sometimes he didn't get through his reads fast enough. Sometimes it wasn't accurate. Whatever it was, here are some of the numbers he had from a completion standpoint that just don't get it done at the SEC level. Florida, 57.4%. Ole Miss, 43.1%. By the way, they still won that game. That is miraculous. Texas A&M, 50%. South Carolina, 60%. They should have probably lost that one as well. This is a team that is going to throw it, and they've got a lot of guys to throw it to. They got Green, the big tight end. That's just a freakazoid. Trey'Dez Green, like that kid, just screams NFL as like a third or fourth option. So there's plenty of places to throw it, but if they can run the ball and Nussmeier can speed up his ability to make reads after the snap, this can be an elite team, and I believe it can be one that competes for a college football playoff spot and maybe does some damage too. As for what I project for LSU, I'm going to go 9-3, and I know LSU fans will be screaming and throwing things, but I think they'll lose at Clemson. This is just the road team, and Kelly doesn't win opening games. He's 0-3, if I remember correctly. And then they'll lose 1 or 2. Ole Miss and Bama would be my guess, but I think they will make the playoff, and they will be a team that gets somewhere between an 8 and 12 seed and be maybe a 1-win team in the playoff, but I just don't think they're going to be consistent enough to make that run that LSU fans want. And I think it'll create an interesting scenario after the season. What do you do with Kelly? Is the contract good? Or are they going to extend it? What's going to happen? I think there'll be a lot of questions afterwards, but I expect LSU to be really good, just not great. We'll see if I'm right or not. But LSU, just kind of studying it more and more, I think they're a unique team, but one that's still just a little bit short of where they need to be a national title contender. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in and get all your recent recruiting news, all the things going on with the NIL, the transfer portal, and everything else. There's probably going to be more podcasts coming up. I just put up something on Amari Latimer as I did a crossover with Locked On Wisconsin, Locked On Badgers, and that Amari Latimer is one of the best running backs in the country for the class of 26. Make sure you check that out. Please like and subscribe and share this podcast. We will see you again soon here on the Portal Podcast.